Hello and welcome to the Three Questions podcast, where we dive deep into the world of wealth management and connect you with industry experts. I'm your host, Wayne Baxter, Senior Executive Manager at One Capital Management. Now, are you or someone close to you consider Mexican residency as a pathway to a new chapter in your life? Today's topic explores just that, the three questions U.S. and Canadian citizens should ask about obtaining Mexican residency. Thank you for taking time to check us out. And if you enjoy this episode of the Three Questions podcast, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our podcast and YouTube channels. High net worth U.S. and Canadian residents are increasingly drawn to Mexican residency due to its affordability, with lower costs of living, often 50 to 70% less than major North American cities, its warm climate, proximity to easy travel, and vibrant expat communities. For those purchasing real estate, where prices often offer a strong appreciation, potentially yields up to 8 to 10% on rental markets, it's an attractive route for retirees, digital nomads. We should talk more about that. Digital nomads and investors seeking diversification amid North American economic insecurities. Though challenges do appear, like bureaucratic processes and cultural adjustments that remain, we're going to address them as we explore the three questions U.S. and Canadian citizens should ask about obtaining Mexican residency. Returning once again to the podcast is Juan Felipe Sanchez. He's a partner at Mexico Business Lawyers, and they're a firm that specializes in corporate law, mergers and acquisitions, real estate, and foreign investment. With an extensive experience advising international clients on residency, business setup, and property transactions in Mexico, Juan is the ideal guide for navigating those opportunities. As we like to say, Juan is the one you need to know. It's great to see you again. How you been keeping?
Thank you so much, Wayne, for the invitation. It's an honor and a pleasure being back here
Once
at your
again,
podcast.
a repeat appearance, and it's great to see you again. And we got to see you in person there. I was at the Provisor leader. I crashed the Provisor's leadership meetings there last week, and it was great to catch up with you. And good to see you. And I know you're enjoying your place at the new law firm here, so congratulations on that. I got to ask, you're kind of at the front lines of this. Have you seen an increase in migration from the US and or Canada to Mexico? I mean, I know currently we're seeing around a million and a half Americans living in Mexico. Canada is probably close behind, but are you noticing an increase in migration based on, the inflow of customers and folks you're talking to?
Yeah, that's a great question, Wayne. And I have to say, yes, I've been seeing steadily increasing interest on U.S. Canada citizens as well, on looking into investing or moving in some way or form to Mexico. This is, I think, at least in my practice, it started since the pandemic, since since we all started to realize that I can work from anywhere that I have a
If you
computer
have
and
a
an internet
laptop and
connection.
an internet connection, right, and a Zoom account.
Yeah, that's right. And ever since, at least in our firm, we've been seeing more interest on people saying, you know what, I want to move to Mexico part time or spend a few months over there, or I want to now move everything into Mexico, buy a house, or invest in any way. And ever since, we've been seeing more and more than that in many other different parts of Mexico. First, it was just like the coast, which is very popular, but now we're seeing more inside of Mexico, Mexico City, Querétaro. We have a few clients in Jalisco, Lake Chapala, which has a great expat community over there. So yes, so far it's been all the benefits that Mexico can offer. People from all over the world starting to realize and getting some interest in that.
You know, we always heard the term, fake news or, misinformation and, creating myths. And some of the myths, that we have here, basically in the context of this move to Mexico, is that, well, if you move to Mexico, you're going to lose your US or Canadian citizenship, or it's really only for retirees, right? Those are two of the more common ones. So, how would you respond to when you hear those sorts of things? How do you respond to that?
No, I think that's a misconception. I think that's totally a misconception. And even so that uh, for like your clients based in this continent or in the US or Canada, they won't have any affections on their citizenship or have to quit or release any type of citizenship that they may have. From getting a temporary residency to a permanent one, or to even though pursuing the Mexican citizenship and having two citizenships, it's completely normal, completely possible for them to pursue their immigration path in Mexico, whatever they have in mind, and also keep whatever they have, or don't affect what they have in their home country.
Mexico, obviously is very, very close and to to Canada and the U.S. relatively speaking, especially to say the Southern California, for example. Um, there's obviously a cultural vibrancy there that makes it ideal for dual citizens. But you got to acknowledge, on the other hand, there are some limitations. The good news is that Mexico's healthcare is affordable, obviously compared to the U.S. And doctor visits maybe like $20. But there are some limitations, related to, I would say, to the quality of care, maybe residency requirements for some of the care you get. Expats are likely going to want to travel back home to get major care, like that, have some serious operations. And that adds obviously the cost of inconvenience because you can't do it there. And then there's the issue of visa renewals. And on that note, I just thought maybe as an attorney, you could maybe chime in on what expats could expect if it comes time to renew their visa. Just the high level overview of what is the drill, basically, in terms of that.
Yeah, and on those terms, we have three scenarios. The first one is uh, seek or file for temporary residency. That needs to start with a 1 year term. And before that term expires, we need to renew one to now it can be done for 4 years, up to 4 years. And that's the temporary residency. If we're looking into pursuing the permanent residency and we already had we're in that stage of the 4 years, we can start building up our file in the immigration agency to request the permanent residency. Once we have 4 years in Mexico, we're more than eligible to pursue the permanent residency.
So
And
there's a process. You start with a 1 year, then a 4 year, then permanent. Is that the way it works,
That's
Juan?
that's the way to go. Yes, I think that the most important one is the first one, the first one that we're seeking the temporary residency, and that's the one that we need to prove that we comply with many requirements that the immigration laws in Mexico request, and they give it for 1 year. And that renewal, it's easier, or the process is much easier because we already demonstrated or proved that we comply with what the immigrations require, and now we can request for 4 years. It is also the key here is to never let those expire in order to
So you don't
keep.
want to be you don't want to be late filing after you've got your 1 year in. You want to make sure that you stay on top of that before you,
That's correct.
because
Yeah,
if you
that's
don't,
correct.
there's a I probably I mentioned there'd be some kind of a deportation risk, or they have to restart the process all over again. It can get really complicated. So you really need to stay on top of that.
Yeah, and most that getting deported, it's also when coming back, right? It's not getting into any trouble when they come back, when the immigration officer will look at your immigration status and get into trouble, right? Just getting back, making all the renewals on time. So they don't have any problems going back and forth if they decided to, for any reason, to go back home and then come back to Mexico, to keep those all the requirements checked and avoid any headaches.
So I know that you obviously you work with your clients on the, processes of purchasing real estate. You help with the formation of businesses. Do you kind of, if you have a client that's on one of those 1 year temporary visas, like the temporary visas, do you kind of keep an eye on that and give them a nudge and say, hey, you know what, we're at month 9 here. We got to keep an eye on the fact that a renewal is coming up. Do you get involved in any of that at all?
Yes, of course. We need to have a very organized file for our clients so we can remind them, are you interested in pursuing the renewal? It is about time because that's something that needs to be done jointly with them. And we'll do the work, but eventually we'll need their cooperation and meeting the deadlines. It's critical.
All right. Well, listen, while we're discussing the 3 questions U.S. and Canadians should ask about obtaining Mexican residency, I'll tell you right now, I can't think of anyone other than you I'd want to have as a guest for this particular topic, and I'm not even kidding, for sure. So, but the questions we're going to pose today are based on, from the context of either a Canadian American looking to move to Mexico. So we're basically going to come from that perspective. So why don't we move right on to the first question? And here we go. My
All right.
wife and I are dual US and Canadian citizens. We're currently living in San Diego, California. We're thinking about purchasing a home in Mexico. What factors determine if we need to apply for Mexican residency? Juan, this seems to be perfect for you.
Yeah, and we get this all the time. That's a great question. Those are the typical clients that have been more common since pandemic. And first of all, I want to address one of the biggest myths, not directly related to immigration, but they always ask me, can I really buy real estate in Mexico? Can I really invest in real estate in
Hmm.
Mexico? And the answer is yes. I mean, I won't go over there, but the short answer is yes, you can. There's ways that non-Mexican citizens they can buy real estate and own property in Mexico. Once we have that, once we know exactly where do we want to live, and they have decided, the client have decided that they want to live more than 180 days at a time in Mexico, or they want to spend more time on that, we need to consider now the option of filing for the temporary residency. And what is the first requirement? The first one is how much money we are gonna invest in real estate in Mexico, and is it complying with the minimum threshold that we need? And here, if we're looking into a house of 250 and up, we might be good. We might be good. We might,
250,000 US,
Y-
Juan?
Yeah, and to be honest, most of the houses now they're above that, right? I mean, our average house that we see maybe or is around the 350, and that has never been giving us any type of issues with getting the temporary residency. We can go lower than that, but I have to be honest, this is not a fixed number. It's more of what we can prove or how we can prove to the immigration authorities of saying there's enough investment, they have enough income, and steadily, and they comply more to be financial independent or stable and afford it to live down in Mexico, right? That's where we come in. That's where if we're looking into lower than 250, we may be able to analyze if there's a way to get it. But if we look in something more than that, we will be more than fine.
So if residency is required for long-term property ownership, okay, what is a sort of, I guess the question, what is there a net worth require? You talked about financial, is there an actual net worth sort of test? Or is it basically like how is it quantified? Is it a net worth number? Like say you got to have a net worth of $1 million, 500, like what is the like the financial sort of requirements that somebody should expect if they're looking at this? What kind of liquidity? Because
Yeah.
it's you could have say a $2 million property per se, and paid off with a mortgage, but you may only have a very small amount of liquid assets. It can happen. People can be house rich, cash poor. And sometimes that's kind of the reason they may be thinking of this, right? But is there some kind of a liquid net worth test, Juan, that you
Yeah.
have?
Yeah, of course. And just want also to point out that if we're looking to have a long-term investment or own long-term property in Mexico, we don't need a residency.
You don't need residency. Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah, you don't need it. In order to buy property, you don't need it. But here, uh, the caveat is if you're going to own real estate and you're planning to live in that real estate, uh, and spend time over 180 days at a time, that's where we need to pursue the temporary residency. And how we can do that? I mean, owning property, that's our first step and our first thing to prove to authorities that, hey, look, I don't know, we own a 250, $300,000 property. That alone may not be enough, but we also need to prove that we have certain amount of income coming steadily, at least for the last 6 months, right? I'm gonna talk over maybe the minimum threshold, right?
Yes.
If you're looking about $4,000 income a month for the past 6 months, um, that we can work on saying like already invested on X amount of money in a property. We have shown bank statements with income minimum of, let's just say, hopefully minimum of $4,000 a month for the past 6 months. That's good enough for us to work and pursue the temporary residency.
Okay, good. So
Yeah, uh,
it's an income test more than a net worth test, is what you're saying, or a liquid net worth test. In
it's
other
a
words, if
mix
you
of both.
showed somebody a brokerage statement with $1 million in it, with that, you'd still have to show a bank account statement showing income coming into the bank account with $4,000.
And this is all. It will be also, of course, under the immigration agent discretion to approve. But if we're talking about, you know what, I can prove a balance on my bank in my home country of $1 million for the past 12 months. That might be more than enough, right? And also I want to clarify, we can show bank statements for the past 10 months, or we can show investment accounts, any type of assets that we say, you know what, I may not have $1 million in cash, but I have this investment with that there has been more than $1 million or $1 million for the past 6 to 12 months. That can also be proved. It's not just liquidity on cash, but also what type of investments or assets do you own as an investment in your home country to prove that you have
You're
you're
self-sufficient, that you're going to be
financially stable.
self-sufficient going forward.
That's correct. Yes.
All right, perfect. So, our topic today is the three questions U.S. and Canadian residents should, or pardon me, U.S. and Canadian citizens should ask about obtaining Mexican residency. And again, joining us from Tijuana, Mexico, is Juan Felipe Sanchez. He is a partner at Tijuana-based Mexico Business Lawyers, and they are a firm that specializes in corporate law, mergers and acquisition, real estate, and foreign investment. So, Juan, great to see you, and thank you for taking the time and going through these questions. Let's go to question number two. I currently own a business here in Southern California. Recently, I've been spending my holiday time in Mexico, and I'd like to spend more time there. Will that impact my ability to legally operate my business back in the US? Juan, that would seem to be, again, right down your alley.
Yeah, and this is also a great question, and also one of the questions that we get asked all the time. Like, what if I have a business in Canada, let's just say, and I'm
Or
gonna
the
keep,
US, Canada
or
or
the
the
US,
US.
yes, and I and I'm that's my source of income. That I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna continue with that. And here we need to take a closer look on not being considered by the tax authorities as a permanent establishment down in Mexico. And from what I think that what is the golden rule is to ask, are you gonna do business down in Mexico? Because most of the time they're saying like, no, 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 I don't do business over there. I just love to live there. I just love the culture and the people. But I'm gonna keep, all my team is in the U.S. or outside of Mexico. All my assets, uh, my my, all the team is it's outside. I'm not gonna touch Mexico at all, and that most definitely is gonna be you won't have any issues running your business or getting into that. I think this goes more of not of an immigration process, but more of a what if you don't get a client into any tax of liabilities down in Mexico. If we're talking about, you know what, now that I'm going to Mexico and I'm gonna live there, I may want to, explore my options and see if I can grow my business and see if we can do something else over there and explore that Mexican market. That's a different question, and that's where we can also set up a strategy. Say, okay, look, if you're looking into that, let's see it into the two sides of things in the immigration and the business law. They merge, and we can help you with that without any type of unnecessary liability or any other requirements that needs to be complied and avoid any fines or any type of other type of liabilities. But that could be done as well. Yes.
Right. So for business owners that are splitting their time between the US and Mexico, I just to be clear, is there any structural changes or is there a way they should structure their operations from a U.S. tax residency rule perspective? And, you know, they don't want to trigger a permanent establishment issue. So is there anything, they come to you with an operating business? Are you going to come to them and say, well, here are things you need to do if you're going to spend more time in Mexico? Or is it as long as they're not doing any business in Mexico, they can just say, you're fine just as is?
Yeah, I think that the fine line is if you're not gonna do any business down in Mexico, if you're don't gonna have neither like a sales teams or anything down here, you're probably gonna be more than good.
Okay,
But if
perfect.
yeah,
All right. That's why we have people like you on the podcast, Juan. You educate and inform us. Okay, so let's go right to question number three. I've become more and more disenchanted with life here in Canada. And even if it were possible, I'm not sure I'd want to live in the United States. What do I need to do to become a resident of Mexico? Now, I know you're an expert in this, so fire away.
all right, yeah. I mean,
Canadian saying, I don't think I want to live here anymore. I don't think I could even immigrate to the US if I wanted to. To me, Mexico is my choice, prime first choice. So walk us through it. What's the process?
yeah. First, we need to see what type of situation the client is. Um, if we're looking to pursue the Mexican residency through financial stability or solvency, if we're looking to any type of investment, like a real estate or having a business down here, or there could be other options like by family ties, by a job offer as well, if that could be the case, or the other option is as well that like the dual citizenship has two ways. The quickest one or the most popular so far is whenever they have a direct descent in Mexico, whether they have a parent, a grandparent, or any in the direct line, they have by law the right to have the Mexican citizenship, right? On the other hand, if they don't have that, it's pursuant. First of all, we need to start with the temporary residency. From all the options that I just mentioned, uh, whichever they it's best for them to choose from and apply for it, we need to start with the Mexican residency. Either we're gonna prove that we have financial solvency, investment, a business down in Mexico, and we'll start with that. We'll comply with the requirements that we already discussed. Then we file that, we get it approved down in Mexico, and then we give those documents to our clients. They need to go to a consulate in their home country or anywhere in the world where Mexico has a consulate to have that interview. And that's where they also need to explain to the US, I mean the Mexico consulate agent on why they are complying with the requirements and what they're gonna do in Mexico. Once they go to that process, they get approved the visa, and then they need to come down to Mexico to the immigration office to get their fingerprints digitalized, their picture, and they will give you the Mexico residency card. That will be the final step, and we're talking about maybe on average about a process of 6 weeks if everything goes right. 6 weeks from the beginning of the first filing. 6 weeks after that, we may be able to already have a residency card to our clients in hand.
Couple questions. First one, you talked about how having a family member already in Mexico can potentially be help the process, right? So,
Yes.
so if a person that's already there, they would have to already have gone through the temporary residency process. They'd have to be considered a permanent resident before that person being there would be a benefit to the next generation of people that want to move. Is that correct? In other words, I couldn't be on my first year of temporary residency and then say, well, I got a cousin or my brother or whoever I want to come down now, and I'm going to use me as leverage. You can't do that, I would imagine. Am I right?
No, no, you can. In order for family ties, we're looking more of a of someone who already has the Mexican citizenship.
Yeah,
But
that's what I
it,
thought.
yeah, but there's always the case that what if I get married? What if I already have my temporary residency and I met someone or and I want to bring them in? That will be much easier, and that we'll need to meet different thresholds, and will be much easier now that they want to come down here, right? That's another path that we can also explore.
All right. Okay. Okay. So, okay, you kind of wrapped this all out for me already, but you know, once the temporary residency has been approved, for a Canadian looking to make that permanent transition, are there any like language or integration required? Is there any kind of additional steps that have to be doing, that maybe aren't so administrative, but maybe more like, again, I'll use language. Is there any language requirements, any sort of cultural integration? Is there any like additional requirements that Canadian would have to be aware of and know about?
Yes, yes, and only for the process of seeking the Mexican citizenship through the path of temporary residency, permanent residency, and then becoming a Mexican citizen. There is a test over there that all the applicants needs to pass, which is, I think, but by that point, it's someone that has already been living in Mexico for at least 4 years, and
They
and
probably
and I,
picked up enough Spanish to get them
yeah,
that
exactly.
will allow them to.
Yeah, I haven't, fortunately enough, that has not been an issue for any of our clients, but by then that they're more than they have more than what they need to prove that they have those cultural ties or knowledge about living in Mexico.
All right. So I got one other question about the visiting part about coming into Mexico. So we talked about temporary residency, permanent residency. What is the maximum time someone can go and visit in Mexico before they have to do any of that? They just want to come down and go to Puerto Vallarta or whatever, Cozumel or wherever they want to go. What's the maximum time for a person simply to visit the country as a tourist, we'll say more or less?
Yeah, that's 180 days. That's
180.
180 days that
Okay.
as a tourist someone can stay in Mexico with just a tourist visa, or not any other type of residency requirements.
I got one more question. I knew I was going. Sorry, Juan. I'm throwing you under the bus here, my friend. So earlier this year, back in February, we had an immigration attorney on from Virginia, Heidi Son. And one of the things we talked about in that episode is how you can get yourself, I'm thinking from a Canadian perspective here, because being from Canada, uh, that if you come down here and say you're on vacation, but actually you're really, you brought your laptop and you're set up in your new Airbnb and wherever you are, and you're down here for maybe a couple months, and you know, you're still kind of working. You're sending emails to clients, you're taking calls, you're doing all this. You're on vacation supposedly, but you know what? Fact of the matter is, I'm actually keeping the business running, or I'm still doing my job, and that can get you in a lot of hot water here in the US. So in Mexico, so the same thing. You're supposedly on vacation 180 days down in Mexico. Are you allowed to do any kind of work related activity? Again, emailing clients, calling clients, doing sort of work stuff like you would off your laptop. Is that allowed, or is that a no-no like it is for the US?
Um, that can also trigger some issues. But what I do want to point out first is that the tourist visa allows any individual from outside of Mexico to do tourist visa and also do uh, business activities. But I want to go back to my previous point of being careful and not being considered a permanent establishment down in Mexico. I'll put a scenario that is perfectly fine. What if we come out of Mexico and I want to be a partner at a business down here, or I want to, do some some business. I have to go and sign a deed. I have to. I want. I'm acquiring uh, stocks in a Mexican company. That I can do. That I can come in, and it's actually needed. Actually, for things that need to be signed before a notary public, a notary public will ask you to show the stamp and and your temporary access to Mexico in order to sign those. You can do that. But if you're doing it in a consistent basis, that's where we need to take a closer look and just take care of avoiding any type of non-compliance with the Mexican laws and rules. That's
So,
the key.
so as far as the tourists coming down and basically working out of as a tourist, that you would say that that would not be permitted, correct? Tourists coming down basically working as if they were still at home. Like, we're working, they're not working for a Mexican company. They're working, use me as the perfect example, right? I want to go spend, 6 months in Mexico. I'm still a US resident, dual citizen with Canada. I got my laptop with me, and I'm just going to keep, doing my Zoom calls with my clients and contacting my client services team, doing all the things I would do if I was, back here in Westlake Village, California. I represent myself as a tourist when I enter the country. Is that permitted?
Yeah, that's permitted. That's permitted.
Wow. Well, that's good to know. That's an eye opener, because I'll tell you right now, that's a taboo here in the US. That's a biggie. That's really interesting. You know what, Juan, you are an incredible source of information. Um, there's a lot of interest, as you know. We just talked about it with, US and Canadian citizens are interested in Mexican residency. If there was one misconception about the process that you could debunk, what would it be? If there was a myth
Um,
about the idea of becoming a Mexican resident, what would you say? If there's a myth out there that's just not true, what would you say it is?
I think that looking this through that there's the requirements that need to be complied. We can work around this. There's no like a limit that above a dollar up on that. now you're eligible. There's many things to consider. Don't listen to someone tell you you need to invest at least X amount of money or you have to have X amount of income to get your residency. I think that's the biggest misconception. They say like, no, I can't because I don't comply with this. We can oversee all of the assets that they have, their investment, their cash or the bank accounts, their income, and try to find the best legal strategy to get them the residency.
Once again, what you've proven to me just right this moment, Juan, is that yet again we're learning that the law is far more of an art than a science, right? There's ways to make things work, is basically the message here, which is great. Legally, of course.
Yes.
Before we wrap things up, just looking ahead, 2026, maybe even a little bit further out, are there any economic or policy changes in Mexico that could affect residency options for US or Canadian citizens? Uh, like, for example, looking to invest in real estate. Is there anything that you can see coming down the pipe that people should be aware of?
Not right now. I mean, not something specifically that I can foresee coming, but the legal requirements or the immigration requirements that Mexico has, they can be changed on a day's notice, or the can become political changes. So it's always important to reach out to an advisor. I'm not saying that you need to reach out to me, but just get local counsel because some of these thresholds a couple years ago they were maybe different than that is now. And whatever it is today, we can never assure that it's gonna be the same for the next years or so. Right now, I don't see anything changing. Right now, I don't see. I haven't heard anything to be changed, but you never know. I mean, you never know. Could be for the good, for the bad for someone, but they do may change over time, or or for any specific changes. I'll tell you an example. It's for the now the individuals they want to get a residency in Mexico through a job offer. Now that has become a bit more strict and difficult to get those and to have a Mexican company be authorized to hire non-Mexican citizens. That's one area that has been changed recently that has been getting a bit more tougher to comply with all the
Is it
requirements.
is it the skill requirement or is it an income level requirement that's been the sticking point?
It's a bit more of proving that there's an actual need on the Mexican business to get that specific um, um, a specific type of knowledge or specialization of the individual that needs to be here. And also, there's been changes on the ratio of Mexican employees and foreign employees. And now they're being more strict on verifying that that ratio still complies. Not that you hire someone and then fire I don't know X amount of Mexican employees. The inspections have been more frequent and a bit more strict. So for instance, that's something that it changed. And on the other areas or specific type of residency, it may also change. Nothing that I foresee right now, but you never know.
Interesting. Okay. I know we have a lot of people watching here right now, and we could get your contact information at your new law firm. Um, and so they can see on the screen as they're watching. But we got a lot of people now. We were on Apple before when you first we were in our infancy, so we were literally internet only. Call it the Three Questions webcast, as you may recall. Well, now we rebranded. We're the Three Questions podcast, so you can now catch us on Spotify. You can catch us on listen to us on Apple. So for the folks that are listening, Juan, what is the best way for them to contact you? How like phone, email? How can people contact you?
Yes, please feel free to send me an email. I think that for me that's the best way to go. My email is Juan at mexicobusinesslawyers.com.
Perfect.
That's the way to go. If you have any questions or any of your audience has any questions, feel free to reach out. Always happy to chat and see how we can better help you.
Juan, thank you so much. Juan Felipe Sanchez is a partner at Tijuana, Mexico-based Mexico Business Lawyers, a firm that specializes in corporate law, mergers and acquisitions, real estate, and foreign investment. And Juan, you are a great guest. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Wayne. Always a pleasure and very
We'll see you.
happy and
We'll see you
honored
before
to
you
be
know
back
it.
here.
Thanks a lot.
Happy to, Wayne.
I look forward to bringing you the Three Questions podcast, and I hope you find them educational and informative. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to our podcast and YouTube channels. And to receive a notification of when our latest episode has been posted, please click on the notifications bell. Last but not least, to schedule an online Zoom consultation with me to discuss your wealth management needs, please click on the link in the description box below, www.onecapital.com/meet with Wayne. Thank you, and we will see you soon.